So fun fact about me. Before drawing became my entire life, I actually wanted to be a game developer. Wow, when was the last time I told someone that? So back when I was a teenager, I wanted to be a programmer and actually make video games. And when I was 16, I downloaded Game Maker Studio to start following that dream. I ended up making 2 full-size games, a Toho fan game called Travelers of Sacred Ground, and an original platformer called Tower of Magic. They were both complete solo projects. Programming, art, music, everything was done by me. And both of these games were about the quality you'd expect, given that they were made by a teenage solo dev with no experience in any of the things he was doing. So, not good. In all seriousness, I could totally make a storytime video about my old Game Maker games. I never want to program a full game again, but I feel kind of nostalgic for them. I also made a couple of much smaller games, which I still enjoy playing from time to time. But right now, the one I've been thinking about the most is Tower of Magic. So, Tower of Magic was a 2D platformer, where you run through levels, shoot down enemies, and make use of a variety of magic types you acquire throughout the game. If that sounds like Mega Man, well, that wasn't my exact inspiration. I was actually inspired by Rosencrantz Stilette, an indie game that borrows very heavily from Mega Man. But yeah, it's a Mega Man-like game. The premise of this game is pretty simple. There's this world where people do magic, but the people split up into different clans to pursue different types of magic. And in a downright stereotypical fashion, the people of the past waged a worldwide war because they liked different magic. But thankfully, the war was resolved after the leaders of each clan, the ministers, decided to build a giant tower in the centre of the land, this being the titular Tower of Magic, the symbol of their unity. And locked away in this tower are the archives of everyone's magic. If they die or otherwise lose their magic, it gets stored in the tower, and you can only enter the tower with permission from all 8 ministers. So the goal of the game is to find all the ministers, fight to prove you're worthy of the keys, and then climb to the top of that tower. But now that I've explained the whole premise, I think I want to get onto the redesigns, starting with our main protagonist, Raven. That sure is a drawing that I made 4 years ago. But let's see what I can do to improve it. Let's go! So I should probably explain what Raven's whole deal is, to make sure we're on the same page. Raven is an 18-year-old orphan who doesn't actually know what clan he hails from, though he was raised by the Light Magic clan, because they tend to like adopting orphans. The game's plot starts with Raven mysteriously losing all of his magic, and wants to get it back. Which, looking back, I'm not a fan of that premise. But anyway, Raven's goal is to find his lost magic in the tower, so he needs to travel the land and prove himself to the 8 ministers. And along the way, he learns new magic from each place he visits, eventually having access to every school of magic. But if he teaches himself new magic throughout the story, then what does he need the tower for? What was the old magic he wants to get back? That's something I never bothered to elaborate on. But all that aside, let's get into the redesign process. So while this art has definitely shown its age, I don't want to change too much about the outfit. But I don't really like the cut of the jacket, both the wide collar and the angular shape of the tail ends. So the first thing I wanted to do was change those shapes to something I like more. I also changed Raven's hair to be more stylish, because come on, you know me, I love giving anime hair to my boy characters. Besides, the intention was there in the original art, though it didn't really work because the hair was too flat. Oh yeah, and I also gave him taller boots. I can't help myself, tall boots are the best thing ever. So I'd probably be fine with the redesign at this point, but I had an idea to spice things up. You see, when I first created the characters in Tower of Magic, I based their designs on animals. Not as in giving them animal traits or anything, just using the animals as inspiration. I kind of dropped that idea eventually, but I wanted to bring it back for these redesigns. And for Raven's animal? Come on, you saw this coming from a mile away. So I started by giving Raven a capelet, a must-have for any fantasy mage. It took me a while to find the right shape, but I wanted the front to look like outstretched bird wings. And later on, I also shaped the back of the capelet to look like bird feathers. This reminds me a lot of some old concept art, where I gave him a literal birdwing cape. I also added a slit to his jacket tail thing, so that it's shaped like a bird tail. Or even like another set of wings. So that's 3 pairs of wings in this design. But aside from the wing imagery, I also wanted to reflect the Raven theme with the colours. So I made his hair lighter with a purple tint, the colour of raven or crow feathers. I also changed his eyes to a light hazel. The original brown was fine, but I just really like hazel as a colour. As for the outfit colours, I just kept them mostly the same. I wanted to keep his original colour palette intact after all. Though one thing that I struggled with was conveying Raven's personality. While I was drawing him, I was constantly thinking of Flynn Rainridge, my alchemist OC who I redesigned in an older video. Raven's outfit was kind of reminding me of Flynn, and they sort of had similar vibes. But the thing is, they aren't the same character. Flynn's kind of a grumpy, not a people person character, but Raven isn't. He's a nerd for sure, kind of a lone wanderer, and also pretty smug, but he's not outright cold like Flynn. I wanted him to come off as reserved, but also a bit of an eye roller, and I do like the face I ended up with. So now we have it, there's the final design, and here's the original art for comparison. I'm definitely happy with the 4-year improvement. Like in the Flynn Rainridge video, I drew both a full body reference and some post art with rendering. I ended up finding a new brush for the shading, and I really like how it looked. Though I only found it after I stopped recording, which meant I had to go back and redo my shading. Ah well. So now that we've finished Raven, let's move on to our second character, Aurum. He's the nephew of the Light Mage Chief. The Light and Dark clans are the only ones without ministers. And he's also Raven's best friend. Now, Aurum changed quite a bit as the game's development went on. I initially envisioned him as a plot twist villain and the game's final boss, but I had a change of plans, so he's just a recurring friendly face in the final game. If I were to rewrite this game from the ground up, I think I would have given Aurum a boss fight and made him more of a rival sort of character. Well, maybe not so much a rival since he's still friendly with Raven, but you get what I mean, right? But before I get sidetracked, let's talk about Aurum's redesign, because he was changed a lot more than Raven. And it's mostly because I felt like the original Tower of Magic designs were very samey. They all had the same height, the same body shape, and pretty similar clothing styles. Not a lot to help them stand out aside from their colour schemes. And that's especially true with Aurum. When you put them side by side with Raven, they have almost the exact same shapes. It's almost like he was meant to be the player 2 character, except he wasn't. He and Raven are pretty different characters, and I want their designs to reflect that. So for Aurum's new design, I was determined to make him more distinct. Starting with his shape, I made him taller and bulkier than Raven, and I made his hair a lot shorter. I also gave him a different face shape, less pointy and more squared off, and a notably bigger nose. I wanted Aurum's face to convey his personality. He's meant to be sociable and openly friendly, especially compared to Raven. So I gave him these big circular eyes, in contrast to Raven having more angular eyes. Then for Aurum's new outfit, I just started from scratch. I wanted something that nobody wore in the original game, so I gave him a big open jacket with short sleeves. Because fun fact, everyone had full-length sleeves in the original game. Yeah, we can definitely change that now. I also had the idea to decorate the jacket with feathers. Aurum's animal inspiration was the golden eagle, but I made the feathers white so they stood out more. And I really like the feathers. They're a fun and distinct visual, and they feel appropriately showy for the nephew of the chief. Not to mention, I used the colour patterns of the golden eagle to sort his colour scheme, especially with the boots. The golden eagle has yellow talons with orange feathers over the top, so I put an orange band over the boots and made the toes and soles gold. I also changed Aurum's eye colour to gold, because eagles have pretty gold eyes. I remembered that I wanted to stick to natural hair and eye colours in the original game, but I didn't want to do that anymore. It's a fantasy world with magic, for crying out loud! I'll take all the liberties I want for the sake of fun designs! Right. So there we go, there's the new Aurum. I do wonder if I'd changed too much, but I'm definitely much happier with his new look. I think it shows a lot more personality than the old one, on top of being more distinct. But if nothing else, I did keep the darker stripes in the hair. I do still like how they look. So now for our third and final character. You might have expected me to redesign one of the ministers, you know, the game's boss characters, but they sadly didn't make the cut. I'll probably redesign some of the ministers if I ever make a sequel video, but for now, let's talk about Garnet. Now this character's identity is technically a spoiler, but it's been a good 3 years since this game came out, and I doubt anyone really cares about Tower of Magic spoilers. Garnet is a mage from Tenebris, the Dark Magic clan, who frequently visits the Tower of Magic. She runs into Raven at several points throughout the game, telling him to stay away from the tower because it's dangerous, mostly talking about the forbidden spells that were used in the Ancient War, being crafted by the Tenebris and locked away in the tower. She's presented as a mysterious figure for much of the story, with her name being a secret. But as we find out at the end of the game, before we enter the tower, Garnet is actually Raven's older sister, and he was separated from his family as a little boy when his mother took him to visit the tower. That's better explained in the actual game, but again, the story of this game is nothing too special. I would be interested in uploading videos of the game though, most likely on a second channel, but let's not get sidetracked again. So moving on to the redesign. Despite her minor role in the game, I did always like Garnet, mostly for the impression she gave. I have a soft spot for mysterious characters like that. But looking back, I really don't like Garnet's design. The hair is really unflattering, and the 3-layer jacket? Just, what was I thinking? This time around, I knew right away that I wanted Garnet to have a cape. A big old cape that's big enough to conceal herself with. She's the kind of person who comes off as intense, but is actually shy, so I think she'd appreciate having something to hide under. Now that she has the cape, she doesn't need the silhouette of the weird long jacket, so I replaced it with a regular jumper and skirt. Then I gave her taller boots, because of course I did. I also made her gloves white instead of purple. I figured she had enough purple already. Also, just to clarify, Garnet isn't based on an animal like the other characters. I came up with her concept after I dropped the idea. Moving to the head area, I wanted to give Garnet's hair more volume and flowiness. I tend to enjoy drawing long hair in general, but my favourite part was the side locks that split in two. They were a fun addition, and definitely unique to her. Now for Garnet's face, I wanted to give her angular eyes to match Raven, to foreshadow their relationship. But I wanted hers to look a lot more serious, so they're sharper and more narrow. I also gave her really narrow irises, something that I often do for very serious characters. And for the last thing I want to talk about, I have to mention the hood thing on her cape. Well, not really a hood. It's more like the cape has these big flaps that she can hang over her shoulders to hide herself more. It's a unique style for sure, and I do like the idea of it, even if the logistics are kind of confusing. Definitely something that I'd need a reference sheet to figure out. Come to think of it, it's been ages since I last made a reference sheet. I haven't done that since 2022, the same year that Tower of Magic's full version came out. Whoa. But anyway, there we go. Here's our final Garnet. I will say that I struggled with the face. I was trying to strike the right balance of disinterested, but not too mean. But I really like how much this design has improved. Same for all three of these characters, but Garnet definitely has my favourite glow up. And with that, that's 3 redesigns of characters from my own indie game. I'll be honest, I thought that I'd never return to this game and its characters, but I'm glad that I did. I don't know, I just like showing how far I've come to nobody in particular. But I definitely value my own artistic improvement, especially when it's been a good 4 years. It doesn't always have to be that long though. I can notice improvement from the things I drew last month, and you can too. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this trip down artistic memory lane, and just memory lane in general. I'm definitely interested in talking about my experiences as a game dev and the games that I released. Let me know if you guys are interested too. And while I don't think it's guaranteed, I may go back and redesign other Tower of Magic characters, specifically the ministers. I don't know, I always feel a bit weird about making sequel videos, but it's a possibility for sure. But whatever I end up making next, I'd really appreciate if you stick around to see it. Like and subscribe, share this video with friends, be sure to check out my other videos, you know the drill. And be sure to leave a comment as well. I'd love to know what you think of these redesigns and which one was your favourite. I also have an Instagram account where I post my art more frequently, And lately I've also been making OC profiles on Unveil. Be sure to check them both out, links are in the description. And speaking of future videos, I actually have quite a lot of ideas in mind, so a couple days ago I opened up a poll in the YouTube community tab to help me decide. And of the 3 options I gave, the Pokemon video definitely won. So look forward to when I evolve my starter trio, that's going to be the next project. But don't worry, all 3 of these videos will still be out eventually. That's everything I wanted to say. Stay hopeful, don't give up on your dreams, maybe think twice on your future career goal before it becomes your entire life and you realise too late that it's not the one you want to live. And I'll see you all next time. I ended up making 2 full-sized games. A Toho fan game called Trazzlers of Sacred Ground,